Hello guys, so in this one we're gonna keep going for the torso. So one thing I do notice is that I'm ending up with a lot of loops from the back. Now the reason for that is all the loops from the arm and the the neck, everything are going downwards, especially those ones. So I can fix that by redirecting some of the loops, like here, maybe this one, right? Instead of making it going down, I'm gonna make it go in, like this. Notice that's sort of different here, is that loop, instead of going downwards, I deleted that one and make it go inwards. And you can do that trick anywhere. Let me just show you again how you do that. So before, you can do that on this kind of penta. It's very easy to do. If you delete one of the lines connected to the penta, you can choose to move the penta to here instead of there, and you end up with having it going in that way. Okay, so that's just one of the little tricks that you can do to have one loop going to a different position or direction. Okay, or in other words, it's the same concept. Where the penta is, where this pole is, will determine where the loop going inwards and where the loop going down, or how many. Okay, now we can do the same thing here too. For example, I don't want this one to be here. I can make it go there, so I will end up with more loop, but I don't want it to be in there. So what can I do? Well, I may be able to make those loops going, and let me also delete that and that. Makes those loops all going in like that, so that I have only one loop here in the middle. It's gonna be a little dramatic. That it's a little too much. I think I'm making the middle one really big here. So I may choose not to do that, but just to let you know that you can very easily reposition the penta vertex. Again, those are the key things. Where they are determines where loop goes, right? So just wanted to show you that it is possible to do all sorts of changes, so that way I end up with much lesser loops going downwards across the span, in case you really needed to do that. So I think that I need the loop going down, at least one more loop here, so that it's not that intense here. That means I have one more loop going inwards, or not that direction actually. I don't like it to go all the way there. So it's gonna be going in this way. Again, for any n-gon here, you can make it work one way or the other. So you can maybe even do this. Oh, I don't like that, so I should go in. So I may choose to make it go down there. And maybe just merge those together. Yeah, so I have one more loop going down in the middle, right here. Okay. Alright, I'm doing a lot of things that doesn't really make that much of a difference on the shape. It's just making the loops lesser here on the back of the span, so that I'm happy with how many I'm ending up at the bottom. Okay. So here I can choose to also make those loops all go inwards. Let me delete the history. So that I will end up with very little loops here, but I don't want it to be too simple at the bottom, so I'm gonna position those two penta over here. Okay. Alright, now let's keep going to the side of the body. Now for this one, I'm gonna extend it, just keep going in so that I can connect it to the front. It doesn't matter how many loops you're using because you can always add new loops if you think you need more here or there. And just I need that loop here to define where things goes in the middle first. And then I can maybe determine where I wanted to transfer it from the torso to the hip. Okay, so by that what I mean is when I have this, where I have this penta. Alright, so this one, this loop will go like this, so it goes in but then it stops here and goes in. I need a loop to wrap around the butt, so something like that. Now you may argue that the muscle goes this kind of way, but again, it's not all muscle, right? It's deformation driven or shape driven. Muscle is the last thing you think about when you're doing topology. It would be stupid to always sorry, it would be really stupid to make all the loop you create to follow the direction of the muscle, because the muscle's direction doesn't define how that part deforms sometimes. Just think about how the animation would be needed, what kind of animation would be needed, and I do it based on that. So sometimes I don't really want it to even the topology too much, because I see that on my original model I have the edge of the ribcage over here, right? I don't have a loop for that after I smoothing that out. If you look at this part, there should be a loop, right? Like that, going inwards. I may even choose to represent that by using some loops that actually going inwards like that. Oops. And to really have a loop to define that for me, if that makes sense. And again, because of that, it will actually cause other things to happen. Like here, I may need one more loop here, and let me reposition that. So I end up with something like this. If I really wanted to, right, I can go crazy on the topology to make it more ideal for the shape I'm doing. But for this kind of variation, or how should I say that, this kind of change that you create, that's gonna actually contribute and make the original shape looks a little better. But the more you do this, the harder it's gonna be for the weighting again, because you're making the topology more complicated across the body. So that may or may not be a good thing. Okay, anyway, so let me just keep it that way over there, because I really wanted that. Now if you look at my model, it's a little blurry, but you can feel that part over here, because I have a loop for that. If I were to make it stronger, I can manually drag that in more so that you see my ribcage represented by that loop, right? So from a traditional modeler's point of view, that kind of thing is important because all we have is topology back in the old days when we don't have ZBrush. So that's what we do to model it. Make it live. Okay, just some little detail there. Alright, so let me again go back to my topic. Here I have a loop right over there for the butt, and what's happening in the middle is easy, just fill it in with you know, shapes. Now here it's the same concept like the ones I mentioned earlier on the breasts, so you can either keep it going circular or at some point you can change it to a grid again in the middle, so it's your choice. I would give it one more loop to wrap around. And then I'm gonna choose to end the with need one more loop over there, grid in the middle. So something like this. Okay, so this is the butt, and let's move on to the front. So this one, it keeps going, and at some point it will have a penta so that it rotates in. Now here I have a I have a little thing about the lag, because the lag, when we want it to be bending, so the actual bending here, when you raise your leg, it's probably going to be like a tilted line, but sometimes it's really hard to do. So I want the loop to be becomes you know, part of lines as soon as possible. Let me fill that in here. I mean horizontal lines as soon as possible here. So I would actually choose one of the loops that's going in, maybe over here, and just have it go here and somewhere to the back, so that this loop actually is where it transfers. Oh, and I might need to do this instead. So I'm defining a loop for my leg, or a hole for my leg to grow out. And the reason I do it this way, because it's easier to think about when you're doing the leg. It needs to transfer to horizontal loops at some point, and it will be easier to really define that first here. So I have a loop here created already. Now what's happening below or above it should be easier to figure out after this one being defined. Okay, so here on the top, let me just keep doing that here, and then at some point I will make it just fill in, maybe one more loop here actually, depending on how many loops I have on the other side. So like this. The same concept happens here, that, you know what, I think that I am happy with the density of the loop I'm having on the leg. So I don't want more loop. Those loops are going down there. So where do they go then? Well, they can choose to actually go wrap around the butt area. So what I can do is, so those ones going down, those are okay. Maybe I can spare one more just to ease that density there. So I can have one more. But for those that I don't really want them to go again downwards, right? So I want them to be going other directions, and that other direction can be any direction going towards the front or the back. Okay, so I can make them maybe go back. So here, instead of making them go down over there, again, the position of the penta really matters. So they will be going inwards. So here, this guy go there, and that guy, actually I want it to be this guy here. So they're all going in, more or less. Okay. So here, if we look at that penta, right? That penta is going that way, but we don't have any penta on the other side. It's actually this loop. Let's go take a look. So this loop, we have a penta over here, right? We have another one over here. So they are corresponding penta vertex or poles, and they're at the same location. And the other ones are just wrapping around. And I have no trouble with that, even though I don't have a penta over there, because I'm sure that it's gonna bend a while anyways. So I don't really worry about that. All right. So that takes a lot of time to do the torso, but of course, down the way, I'm trying to explain a lot of things that why I choose to do this or that. What's the good or bad things about that, like this part that I can use that loop I created here to really represent the rib cage, and the loop here to represent the belly, and loops around the butt to really do the butt, but it doesn't go all the way through. Again, it's okay to me. If I'm the rigger, I'm not gonna complain about that, or if I'm the texture artist, I wouldn't think that's gonna be bad for my UV at all. So why are we so concerned about those things that I don't really want to think about too much about that. Anyway, so that's gonna be the torso, and then in the next tutorial we're gonna keep going, finish the leg and foot. I don't have toes there because I'm gonna have show later on, so I'm just gonna do that, and then we move on to the arm and of course the hand. So see you next time.